everyone, it's Max and welcome to my February wrap-up. I'm so sorry it's late, but you know, I got to it when I could. So in February, I ended up reading 12 books, 2 of which I'm not going to talk about because they are part of a secret TBR. But without further ado, let's just get into the first book. So the first book I read in February was Gideon the Ninth by Tamzin Muir. Now this takes place in a solar system where each planet has a different type of necromancy magic. The 9th planet is able to control bones. Now when the ruler of the whole universe basically calls upon the leaders of the different planets to come and try and become his immortal group of informants or whatever, confidants, Gideon is taken by the ruler of the 9th house to be kind of her protector. And then when rulers start getting picked off one by one, they're trying to figure out who is doing it. I really wanted to love this and I just didn't. I really liked Gideon as a main character, but I hated Harrow, who is her love interest and the queen of the 9th house. I hated her. I thought she was so mean to Gideon and she didn't deserve it. And people are like, oh my god, they're so great together. No, they're not. Harrow is awful to her until all of a sudden she's like, no, we're cool and I'm in love with you. And I was just like, what? I can't stand Harrow. I think she is just an awful person and I'm just really annoyed because I love a good hate to love romance, don't get me wrong, but it was done so fast where I was like, okay, maybe when they come to this other planet it's gonna be they only have each other, and so it was gonna start to build trust, everything. No, Harrow kept Gideon in the dark for so long and then all of a sudden was like, no, I'm in love with you. And it just didn't make sense to me and it just really annoyed me. And I am interested enough in the plot to continue, but not to buy the next book. I'll get it I don't know, somewhere from a library or something when I decide I want to read it, because honestly, did not really like it and I ended up giving it a 3.25 out of 5 stars. All right, the next book I finished was A Local Habitation by Seanan Mcguire. This was my Seanan Mcguire book of the month and I really liked it. I really liked this one. I had such a blast. I am really starting to like October Toby, and I think who is going to be the love interest. I am so into their dynamic. Talk about a good enemies to lovers sort of thing. I love him and I like them together so much. He's a ruler and he's very much powerful and he's fae and he's humans are nothing to me, but then he's in love with Toby, so and Toby's half fae. This is a series about a half fae named October Day who is a PI for the king of a sect of fairy, and at the beginning of the first book she is turned into a fish for 14 years. So the series starts when she wakes up a human again and has to kind of take back her life and solve mysteries. This one was again and then there were none situation where everyone is being killed off. That was the theme of the month, because Gideon the Ninth is like that. This is like that. A Memory Called Empire is like that. So there were so many different books that I was reading where I was like, these all fit this theme, and it's a theme that I really enjoy. I really do like and then there were none sort of trope, and so it was a lot of fun and I just loved love interest and I liked them together so much, and I ended up giving it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Next book that I read was an arc of The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and this honestly again was a little bit of a disappointment. So this takes place in a world where women are subjugated again, and once they turn, oh god, I still don't know if it was 16 or 18, their blood is tested, and if their blood runs red then they're fine, they're safe, but if their blood runs gold they're killed. And our main character's blood runs gold, but then before she's able to be, and then they try to kill her and she keeps not dying, she keeps regenerating basically, and they try everything. She's tortured for weeks or months. And then the right-hand man of the king comes and says that he is gathering an army of gold bloods and asks her to join. And she decides to, because it's either that or just continue to be tortured. And I found this very predictable. And like, so the characters, the gold bloods, are given like, hey, if you come and you dedicate your service to the king for 20 years, we will give you red blood. Like somehow they're able to do that. And I think we all know where that goes. And it's just so predictable. And the writing was good and I was interested in the plot, but it just, like, the first half was really interesting and then I kept being like, what is the end plot to this? Like, I felt like there was no plot. Like, there was like she was taken to the army base and like their training goes so fast. There's no sense of time this whole book. I'm like, are we a week out? Are we a year out? Because things happen in such a way that it feels like this should be taking years. And then like, but I don't think it does, but like no timeline is ever given. There's one time a timeline is given and that's because she couldn't access a library till she was there for 3 weeks. So then she was able to access the library. So it's like, okay, she's been here for 3 weeks. And then after that, time is an abstract concept. And then like at the 50 or 60% mark, it flips. And the plot is completely different. Everything is totally different. And nothing was like expected except one thing. And it was just so obvious, but not like unexpected in a good way where it was like, oh my gosh, like, look at this, that's genius. Here's all the clues. No, it came out of left field and it made no sense. And it was just, the first half was great. It was gonna be like a 4.25, 4.5 out of 5 stars, except for the timeline thing. And so I wasn't gonna be a 5 stars. And then after the second half, it dropped to a 2.75. It was so absurd. And this is gonna be a trilogy. And I do not have any idea how, because honestly, I'm pretty sure at the end of the first book, it was like, okay, this could have been a standalone. A bad standalone, but it could have been a standalone. So I don't know how it's gonna be an entire friggin' trilogy. And it just was not very good. Gonna admit it. I'm really bummed because I thought it was gonna be like a new like YA hit. I thought it was gonna take BookTube by storm. I thought it was gonna be great. And it just wasn't. It just wasn't. All right, the next book that I finished was my Tamora Pierce book of the month, and this was Bloodhound, and it was an audiobook that I listened to. This is the second book in the Becca Cooper series, and I really enjoyed it. I am having one slight problem with the Becca Cooper series, and now I finished it when I'm filming this. And it's that there is no like series plot line. Each book feels almost like a standalone and they're just like the tales of Rebecca Cooper, which I would have been fine with if it wasn't like a very distinctive trilogy. Like if this had been like the October Days series where, you know, each book is like a different mystery, I would have been all for it. But the fact that it's only a trilogy, it doesn't feel like they're working towards an end goal. And I've finished the trilogy now and they're really not. But I did really like the plot. This is the second book and Becca, it kind of like expands. So she was just in the one country in the first book and now her and her partner go to a different country because someone is like selling fake silver or like putting fake silver into the market where it looks like silver, but if you scratch beneath the surface, it's bronze. And it becomes this like huge conspiracy and Becca is trying to figure out what happened. What I really like about Tamora Pierce books is that even though they're for a slightly younger audience, Becca Cooper series I think is for like more on the older side of middle grade, it's still like mature where it's like, no, it's okay to have multiple love interests throughout a series. It's okay for your first love not to be your only love. And it's okay to like explore what you like and everything. And I do really like that. I've seen this with most of her series. It happens in the Alana series. It happened in this series. It happened in the Protector of the Small series where like these women are with different men throughout the series, not cheating or anything, but like, you know, they date. And I really did like that because I think it's so much more realistic than, especially when they're young, like, you know, the Alana series and the Protector of the Small series, they're following these girls since they're like 12. And so it's like, you know, it's like, no, their first love is not going to be their only love, you know, and then, but their end romances feel so much more like natural because usually they knew them from near the beginning. Becca, her end romance, you meet him in the third book, which again is like not great, but that's besides the point. I did really like it though, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. All right, the next book I finished was a memory called Empire by Arcadie Martine, and this is again kind of similar to the "and then there were none" trope, where people were dying off. And this is about a woman who becomes a ambassador to this other world, and it's because the last ambassador died, and she is given the memories of the last ambassador. It's like a secret for this world that they can do this, but the memories that she has of the last ambassador stop like 5 years before he dies, and so she's trying to figure out what happened. Now, I just found this very boring. Like, the plot of trying to figure out who did it is like immediate. Like, she already has the memories of the ambassador when we start the book. And I wish there was a little bit more build up to it. I wish she hadn't come in already thinking someone killed him. I wish like it had been built where she gets the memories and she's starting to unlock like, why do I only have up until 5 years ago and all this stuff, and then figuring out that someone killed him and more investigating the mystery. And there's definitely a overarching plot of like worlds trying to dominate other worlds and like massive conspiracies going on. And this won like the Hugo or Nebula Award for 2020. And it was okay. I don't think it needed to be as long as it was. I can't remember how long it is. I mean, it's not that long overall. It's like 450 pages, but it just was very average. I feel like nothing was really finished. I honestly have kind of blocked a lot of it out of my memory, so I don't really remember a lot of what happened, but it was just kind of just average, I gotta say. So I think I gave it a 3.25 out of 5 stars. Not really that interested in continuing the series, especially again because I feel like it wrapped up so easily. It was like, okay, it almost felt like, okay, so it's a standalone and there we go, the end. So, all right, the next book I read was The Library of the Unwritten by A.J. Hackwith. And this one I did really enjoy. This is about, I think it's Earth, yeah, Earth and Hell. And Hell has a library. And it's not like connected to Hell, it's just like in Hell, and that's very important, where it's basically a purgatory for all books that were never finished. And books can like turn into humans. And our main character is a librarian who is tasked with keeping the books in the library. But one day a book escapes and she goes after it, and an angel is trying to track the devil's Bible, and he tracks it to our main character who didn't even know she had it. And she's Claire. And it's very important that she's not actually, like, the devil isn't her ruler. It's supposed to be a very independent, neutral space, but like politics where heaven and hell are trying to like take the library for themselves, and Claire is like basically trying to hold it off. And I did really like this. I own the sequel. I'm very excited to see where the sequel goes. So yeah, it's basically just and I do really like Claire, and I like how even though she's been the librarian for so long, she's still able to learn new things. Usually I don't like in Immortals when like they have character development, but it's been like 300 years and it's like, why didn't you have this character development earlier? But honestly, it feels more organic for her, and she hasn't been immortal for 300 years. It's been like, I don't know, between 30 and 40, I want to say, but it's felt more organic because she's like alone in this library with like one other person. So, you know, it's like there isn't space for character development because she's like alone, you know? So when she has that development, it feels so organic. And I did really like Claire. I liked our supporting characters, and I'm really excited to see where the series goes. And I ended up giving it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. The next book that I finished was another audiobook, and this was My Contrary Mary by the Lady Janies. And I was so sad about this. This takes place in the same universe as My Lady Jane, where people can turn into animals, some people. And I just love Tudor era books, especially like this sort of thing, and I loved My Lady Jane, but My Contrary Mary follows Mary, Queen of Scots, and I did not like it at all. Now, part of it might be the audiobook. I did not like the audiobook. I got an arc of the audiobook, and listening to it on the NetGalley app was not very good, and I did not like Mary. I thought she was so annoying. I didn't like any of the characters except Francis, who's her husband, and there was like no plot. And I don't know, I feel like everyone was so stupid and just made such stupid decisions, and I just could not get into it, and I ended up giving it like a 2 out of 5 stars, which is such a bummer. I was looking forward to it so much, and I just am heartbroken, honestly. And Mary, like, I thought it would be good because she can shapeshift into a mouse, and in France, it's illegal. Like, I think you can be killed, I think, like, for being able to shapeshift. And so I thought, like, okay, great, she's gonna be keeping this secret, but Frances already knew. And then there were like other secrets, but they didn't make sense. Like, I really don't like the secret keeping trope, but if it had been that she wasn't telling people that she could shapeshift into a mouse, I'd get it. Like, I get that. But that's not even the secret. Like, it's all this other random stuff, and I just didn't like it, and I'm so sad about it. All right, the next book I read was very different, and that is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers, and I loved this. This is the sequel to A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and oh, it just got me so hard. I liked this so much. This is a series that is a compilation of standalones, even though like they take place after the events of the first book, and I feel like I suggest reading the first book before the others, but I think you could read, like, I'm currently listening to Record of a Spaceborne Few, which is the 3rd book, so I feel like you could read the first book and then the 3rd book and not have to read the 2nd book. I'm only 2 hours into an 11-hour audiobook, so I mean, that might change. But I know it's supposed to be like a series of standalones, so I do suggest reading the first one though, but this is kind of an intergalactic series. This one is, we follow 2 main characters, one in a past timeline, one in a present timeline. The one in the present timeline is a AI, and she's keeping that secret because I think it's like illegal to have AIs look like regular humans. And then our other main character is in the past, and she was part of this slave group where it's like they like create children to be slaves, and she escapes her captivity, and she finds this spaceship, and she lives in this spaceship for like 10 plus years, and she's trying to like repair the spaceship to like leave and go to a different planet. And then in the current timeline, she is trying to find that spaceship, and oh my god, it was so good. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5 stars. It was so amazing. Becky Chambers did such a great job at the diversity and the storytelling, and it's definitely more of a character driven series than plot, but like people say that about this series all the time, but it is so good. It took me a little bit to get into the present timeline. I was hooked on the past timeline from the very beginning, but then by the end I was so hooked on both timelines, and I adored it. It was so good. I highly suggest this series. All right, the next book that I read, I did not finish, but it's not a DNF, and it is because when I did TBR cards, I pulled a horror, and I thought maybe this book would be a horror because the author has done that in the past, but I got like 125 pages into it, and I was like, this is definitely not gonna be a horror. It's definitely more of like weird surrealism, and that is A Peculiar Peril by Jeff Vandermeer. I am not DNFing this. I am just putting it down until I can draw a card that fits the prompt, that this fits better. But this is about a guy whose grandfather dies, and he inherits his estate, but his estate is like a doorway to like other dimensions. And yeah, so I'm 125 pages into it. I'm very intrigued. I just decided to put it down. So then for horror, I end up reading Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, which is like, it was ridiculous. It was a short story, thank God, and it was so predictable and so obvious. But this is about a boy who has like a group of friends, and they used to have this mannequin that they like treated like a real person, and then like they forgot about it. And then one day, to prank their friend at this movie theater, they like bring the mannequin, and then this mannequin comes to life. And then the mannequin supposedly kills one of the friends and her whole family. And our main character thinks, oh my gosh, it's gonna do that to all of us. And he decides that instead of letting all of his friends and their families die, he's just going to kill the friends so that the mannequin doesn't kill the families. Yeah. If your first thought, like, go with your first thought. If your first thought is like, oh my god, wait, no, but that would be, if you think it's gonna be something, then you think, oh no, that's too ridiculous, like that's too obvious. No, that's it. That's it. from the beginning, I was just like, okay, so it's gonna be this, and I was right. And it was just not good. Very, very boring, very average, not scary at all, but still part of like the horror genre. So I'm counting it, and I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. It was ridiculous and very bad and just not good, so don't read it. All right, and then the last book I can talk about, because again, the other 2 are part of a secret TBR, but the last book that I read was the shock of the century, and that was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I was so scared going into this because Nesta is one of my absolute least favorite characters of all time, maybe the most. And so this was a whole 750-page book about her. I was very nervous. I got this for Christmas from my stepsister, so I was like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna read it. Like, I was going to read it at some point anyways, but it just was not at the top of my TBR, but I got it from her, and so I decided to read this. And I'm a Nesta stan now. Who the hell am I? I can't believe it. And I think it's because being in her point of view, I realize how much she hates herself. And it's so hard to hate someone who hates themselves so much and isn't like an actual like bad person. You know, she's not a Nazi. She's not a murderer. So, you know, like if that was the case and they hated themselves, I'd be like, yeah, I hate you too. But it is so hard to hate someone who just so desperately hates themselves. And I ended up loving her. I still don't like her decisions that she made in the earlier books, okay? And I get that she has PTSD, but she's been a terrible person from the very beginning. But getting inside her head, I think, was the best thing, because now I understand where she was coming from. I still don't agree with it, but by the end of this, I was a full stan. I can't believe it. Honestly, I can't believe it. Unlike her, I really didn't like most of the other characters. Reese annoyed the hell out of me. Feyre became like a doll. Like, she let people just walk all over her. Amryn, I hate. I didn't like Amryn after the end of A Court of Wings and Ruin because she does something awful, and so I just don't like her anymore. But like, they forgive her for everything, and I'm just like, okay, if you're gonna forgive her for this, you should be forgiving Nesta. And everyone just like doesn't let themselves believe that Nesta is changing, except Cassian. Cassian is the only one who's like, no, like, stop treating her like she's the same person as the beginning, because then she'll never change. Asriel was good too, but like Moor's barely in it, so like she's fine, but like everyone else, and they kept secrets from Feyre and Nesta that I was so angry about. And then Nesta just, my biggest problem is that like, I feel like she's trying to make it show that like Nesta has healed. And I know I mean, healing is a process, and you know, Nesta might not ever fully be healed. That's okay. But it's like, she does things that are actually like, yeah, no, like Feyre, there's a secret that no one is telling Feyre, and it is like a life or death secret. And so Nesta finally tells her, and like everyone is like, oh my god, you're the worst person ever, how dare you tell her. And so Nesta ends up apologizing, and I'm like, no, Nesta should have told her. Someone should have told her. It felt like more like they're all angry at Nesta because they know they're in the wrong, but then like Nesta's the one who apologizes, and so it was made out that Nesta was in the wrong, and I was just like, no. But I'm now a Nesta stan, so who the hell am I? I did really like the plot. I loved the supporting characters that weren't the inner circle. I really liked them, especially these 2 women. And the end plot was actually really good. I do wish one thing happened. Like, when the end plot is revealed, they are working towards a very, very like tangible goal, and Nesta doesn't get to it. And oh, I just wish she had, like, desperately wish she had. And I know it's supposed to be like, you know, it's okay to like not fully succeed or whatever, but I really wanted her to, and I'm really bummed she didn't. I am a little nervous about the fact that this is like a series of like, that each book follows a different character. I think, so it's Nesta, Moor, and Elaine. I don't know if the second book follows Moor or Elaine. I wish it was more like we got their 3 point of views throughout the whole series instead of one for each, because honestly, I don't feel like that's going to work. Moor has been in like together like 50 pages of this, and like half of the time she's just like there. She's not actually like the main part of the scene. And so I feel like it's gonna be weird to all of a sudden get like a full book of her when we don't even know like really what she's been doing. Same with Elaine. I'm also not the biggest fan of Elaine. I've never really have been, but especially now. And so I'm just like, I don't know, I'm a little nervous now more about the other books than I was about this. but I ended up giving it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. I ended up really enjoying it, but too many things made me angry, and not in the way where you're supposed to be angry and then like it's resolved. Like in that sense, I love it when that happens, because it's like, no, look, this is supposed to give this emotion from you. Like you're supposed to be this angry. And then I love it because I'm like, wow, you did that so well. But this, I was just so angry at the characters, and then like it's never resolved. And so I just drove me crazy too much to give this a 5 out of 5 stars. But I really, really liked it. Plot twist of the century, and I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you soon with another video.